You can't let her touch the will, Maya whispered. Marcus Bennett froze mid-step, the polished oak floor creaking beneath his feet. For a second, he wasn't sure he'd heard her right. His hand was still gripping the handle of his leather briefcase, his mind already halfway through the board meeting he was about to attend. He turned slowly. What did you just say? His voice was sharper than he intended. Maya stood there in her socks and oversized school sweatshirt, barely reaching the brass doorknob behind her. Her curls were still messy from sleep, her dark eyes wide but unflinching. I saw her, she said. Miss Sabrina. She opened your safe. She took pictures of the will. Marcus blinked. What are you even talking about, Maya? The name came out more like a sigh than a question. He ran a hand through his graying hair, irritated, impatient. You shouldn't say things like that. But I saw her, Maya insisted. She was in the study last night, when I came down for cereal. Maya, stop. His voice rose. Enough. This isn't a game. The girl stepped back, startled. Marcus had never yelled at her before, not like that. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Maya's lower lip trembled for a second, but she didn't cry. I'm not lying, she said quietly. Marcus clenched his jaw. Sabrina has done nothing but care for this family. She's been here for both of us. She's helping me, helping you. She doesn't like me, Maya cut in. She's trying, Marcus said, louder than before. And maybe you should too. For a long moment, Maya just stared at him. Then she murmured something under her breath. What was that? He snapped, turning back toward her. She looked up, her voice barely a whisper. I said, I'm trying, Dad. The word hit him like a punch. Dad. She had never called him that before. Not on Sonot, in the 2 years since he married her mother. Not even after Clara's funeral, when the house fell into a quiet, aching stillness. She always called him Marcus, polite, distant, like she was keeping her heart zipped behind a door she wasn't ready to open. And now, when he had just barked at her, accused her of lying, she called him Dad. He stood frozen, watching the little girl slowly walk away, her small shoulders rising and falling with silent breaths. Something cracked in him. Later that night, after Sabrina had gone out for her evening sound bath session, Marcus found himself standing in the study alone. The house was dark except for the brass lamp that cast a warm pool of light on the desk. He stared at the safe. He hated himself for doing it. He opened it. The will was still there, still sealed. But something wasn't right. The envelope felt stiffer than he remembered. Newer. The paper inside, was it glossier? He couldn't be sure. He set the document aside and sat down, rubbing his temples. A nagging voice echoed in the back of his mind, Clara's voice. Signatures and papers are sacred things, Marcus. Promise me, if anything ever happens to me, don't let your grief blind you. He had promised, then broken it. When Sabrina returned an hour later, glowing with that effortless beauty she wore like perfume, she leaned down to kiss him. He kissed her back. He smiled. But something was off. And for the first time, he watched her not as a partner, but as a puzzle. He noticed how she immediately went to the study, to tidy up, how she closed the door behind her, how she suddenly cared about the financial reports on his desk, how she'd started asking too many questions about his estate, especially since he'd begun talking about creating a trust for Maya. He poured himself a drink and sat by the fireplace, staring at the flames. That one word, Dad, still echoed in his chest. Maybe Maya wasn't lying. Maybe she had finally decided to trust him, and he'd almost thrown that away. And maybe, just maybe, the person he should have been questioning all along wasn't the little girl who had everything to lose. It was the woman who came in smiling, and was suddenly everywhere she shouldn't be. And just like that, one word cracked open a man's certainty. Dad. Not a title, it was a plea. A quiet act of courage from a little girl who'd been watching more than anyone realized. Before we continue, tell me, where in the world are you watching this from? The next morning, Marcus sat alone in the sunroom, cradling a cup of black coffee that had long gone cold. The newspaper lay untouched beside him. Outside the tall windows, the Georgia sky was soft with spring haze, birds flitting from branch to branch like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong, and the unsettling silence in the house only made it worse. He'd barely slept. Maya's words still echoed. Don't let her touch the will. And then that fragile, unexpected whisper, I'm trying, Dad. He pinched the bridge of his nose. He'd brushed it off yesterday. He'd snapped at her. But the way she'd looked at him, he couldn't shake it. Not her voice, not her certainty. And certainly not her eyes. Those were Clara's eyes, wide and stubborn and frighteningly wise. Morning, Sabrina chirped, entering the sunroom barefoot, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, robe cinched perfectly. She leaned down and kissed his cheek. You didn't come to bed last night. I had some things to think about. Oh? She asked, sliding into the chair across from him. She poured herself a cup of tea from the floral pot she'd set earlier, stirring it with slow, practiced fingers. Work stuff or Maya stuff? Marcus forced a smile. Both. Sabrina offered a sympathetic little hum. She's still having those dreams, huh? Marcus said nothing. He watched her over the rim of his cup. The way she tilted her head, as if performing concern. The way she didn't ask what Maya had said. Just assume it, or rather, hoped he'd dismiss it. And until recently he would have... Actually, he said, careful, calm. She said something strange last night. Oh? She said she saw you in the study. Sabrina blinked. When? Last night. Around midnight, she said. A beat passed. Just enough. Then, she must have been dreaming again. You know how vivid kids' imaginations are, especially after everything that's happened. Maybe, Marcus said. But she was awfully specific. Sabrina's smile didn't reach her eyes. Marcus, you're not seriously suggesting I snuck into your study in the middle of the night to... What? Read your documents? You've been asking a lot of questions lately. She laughed soft, amused, but a hair too fast. I live here. I care about our life. I'm not going to apologize for wanting to understand how things work. Marcus nodded slowly. Fair. Sabrina leaned forward, her tone honeyed now. Look, I know Maya's still adjusting, and I know she misses Clara. Of course she does. But I've only ever wanted to be a good influence, Marcus. I've been nothing but supportive. He met her gaze and smiled. That's why I trust you. She relaxed visibly, leaned back with a relieved breath. He excused himself a moment later, but the knot in his chest only tightened. Her answers were polished, too polished. She was always composed, always just enough upset, just enough concerned. But something felt rehearsed now, like a performance with beats she'd memorized. He walked to the study, closed the door. The safe sat under the cabinet, inconspicuous. He opened it again, pulled out the will. He hadn't shown it to anyone in months. He knew every page, but something was off. He stared harder, then opened the bottom drawer of Clara's old filing cabinet. That's when he saw it. The original version, an earlier draft of the will, handwritten note still paperclipped to the corner. And on it, the final paragraph didn't match the one in the version inside the safe. The wording was similar, but this one made Maya the sole beneficiary. The one in the safe split control between Maya and his heart-dropped-any future spouse. He sat down hard. Clara would have never added that clause. Never. Especially not after they discussed protecting Maya no matter what. He flipped through both documents again, side by side. Fonts, spacing, layout, it was seamless, professional. But now that he knew what to look for, the differences became clearer. And suddenly, he understood. This wasn't Maya's imagination. It was a warning. That evening, he picked Maya up from school himself. She was surprised. She usually came home with the driver. But today he'd canceled all meetings and waited in the car line just like every other dad. When she climbed into the back seat, she barely spoke. You hungry? He asked as they pulled away. She shrugged. I was thinking tacos. She glanced at him, uncertain. Just us? He nodded. Just us. They sat in the back corner booth of a quiet local diner. He didn't rush. Let her sip on her lemonade. Watch the cook behind the glass grill flip tortillas. Hey, he said gently. I owe you an apology. Maya looked up. I didn't believe you last night, and I should have. Her eyes didn't move. I looked at the will, Maya. I compared it to the original draft. Someone changed it. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Finally, she whispered. So you believe me now? I do. Her lips tightened, and her eyes shimmered. She looked away quickly, like she didn't want him to see it. But Marcus saw it anyway. You were really brave to tell me, he added. She nodded. I didn't want to, but I promised Mom. He froze. You promised her? Before she died, she told me to watch the safe. She said if anything happened to her, I should make sure no one ever touched your will. She said grief makes people blind. Marcus felt the breath leave his lungs. Maya reached into her little backpack and pulled out a worn spiral notebook. Clara's journal. The one she used to read aloud from at bedtime. She wrote about it, Maya said. It's in here, see? He took the notebook gently. And there it was in Clara's handwriting, dated a few weeks before her accident. If something ever happens to me, and someone new walks into the house too quickly, too easily check the documents, Maya will know. She sees what we adults miss. That night, Marcus stood at the threshold of his office again, holding Clara's notebook in one hand and the altered will in the other. He stared out into the hallway where Sabrina had just passed, laughing on the phone, laughing like she didn't have a single worry in the world. But now, he did, and so did she. She just didn't know it yet. ChatGPT da noi. 3 days passed. Marcus said nothing. He watched. He watched the way Sabrina suddenly lingered longer at the office door when he wasn't inside. The way she asked if he needed help, filing things. The way she casually mentioned how hard Maya had been lately, how distant, how difficult. She's still so troubled, she said once, stirring honey into her tea. You know how children can twist things when they feel threatened by someone new. Marcus nodded, smiled faintly, but inside, he catalogued every word. By the 4th morning, he called Louis Carter. Louis had been Clara's attorney and friend for over 2 decades. A widower in his 70s with a sharp mind and slower feet, he arrived at the Bennett estate just after lunch, stepping out of his Navy Lincoln with a worn leather briefcase and a heavy coat that didn't suit the weather. Maya greeted him on the porch. Uncle Louis, she said softly. His smile was immediate and warm. Your mother would have been proud of you, young lady. He meant it. He always had a fondness for Clara's daughter, and he had no doubt she was telling the truth. But now that Marcus had seen the will scene, the alteration with his own eyes, Louis had something tangible to pursue. Inside, they laid the 2 versions side by side. Louis, squinting over his bifocals, examined the documents down to the ink weight and letter spacing. This paragraph, he said, tapping the page gently. It's off. Slightly different kerning. Same font but the spacing's wrong. And see this? The margin's adjusted by 1/10 of an inch. You think it was printed over the original? Number, recreated. Professionally. This is forged, Marcus. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The words didn't surprise him anymore, but hearing them aloud grounded his suspicions. And if it's forged? Then someone's planning to steal a very large part of your estate. Marcus's jaw tightened. The clause grants 40% of my liquid assets to a future spouse, including Sabrina. Louis nodded. And if this gets filed as your last will, she has legal standing to contest nearly everything else, even Maya's share. They sat in silence for a moment. She doesn't know I've noticed, Marcus said. Then don't let her know. Yet. Louis opened his briefcase and pulled out a small rectangular device. A voice recorder? Marcus raised a brow. A highly sensitive, court-admissible recorder. Maya wears this during a conversation with Sabrina. If Sabrina says anything even remotely coercive or incriminating, we'll have more than suspicion, we'll have evidence. Marcus stiffened. I don't want her in danger. She won't be, Louis said calmly. We'll monitor it live. You and I will be less than a room away. The moment anything feels wrong, we step in. Maya, who had been quietly sitting near the door with her knees pulled to her chest, looked up. I can do it, she said. If Mom were here, she'd want me to. Marcus's throat closed. He nodded once, eyes burning, but didn't speak. That night, they prepared everything. Sabrina believed she had won. Her tone was gentler than ever, her gaze softer. At dinner, she served Marcus his wine, touched his hand as she spoke about legacy, and praised Maya's new obedient behavior. I think we've really turned a corner, she said, smiling at Maya like a cat pretending not to notice the mouse. The next afternoon, Marcus told Sabrina he was thinking of updating the will. Just to be responsible, he said with a casual shrug. After all, if something ever happened to me, I'd want to make sure you and Maya are protected. Sabrina's eyes sparkled, but her voice stayed composed. Marcus, that's so thoughtful. I mean, of course, I'd never expect anything, but it's good to plan. Responsible, like you said. He told her he'd drafted a preliminary version. You can review it tonight if you want. That evening, They handed her a copia, carefully fabricated decoy, crafted by Louis with glaring financial inconsistencies and fake assets. Offshore accounts that didn't exist, properties that had been sold years earlier, business interests no longer active. Any normal person would have raised questions. Sabrina didn't. Instead, she went quiet as she read, flipping pages with a growing smile. "These Cayman holdings," she murmured. "I thought you sold those years ago, but I guess I misunderstood." Marcus's heart stopped. They had never, ever discussed Cayman accounts, not even in passing. Across the room, Louis tapped a silent code on his tablet. The recording was crystal clear. Sabrina continued, almost talking to herself now. "And the Zurich accounts. Smart move, honestly. Splitting them from your U.S. assets shields Maya's inheritance from tax complications. Very clever." Louis looked up. Marcus stared at her. "You seem very informed." Sabrina chuckled, setting the pages down. "You forget I listen when you talk, darling. You're always discussing your finances over the phone." "That's funny," Marcus said, stepping closer, "because I haven't mentioned those accounts in nearly 5 years, and certainly not in this house." She blinked, just once. Then her smile returned, colder now, thinner. "Well, perhaps I just assumed based on patterns." But her voice betrayed her. The careful script had slipped, and Marcus wasn't the man she'd once fooled. Sabrina stood, brushing invisible lint from her blouse. "Is there something you're trying to imply?" Maya, who had been curled on the love seat with her favorite butterfly hairpin clipped neatly above her ear right where the mic was hidden, looked up and asked gently, "Miss Sabrina, would you want me to sign anything if Daddy ever got hurt?" The room went still. Sabrina turned slowly. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you told me the other day you wanted to talk about my mom's jewelry in the house." Sabrina froze, then smiled. "I was just saying it might be smart to prepare a gift agreement. Something for the future. You know, in case you ever want to show gratitude." "Even if I didn't want to?" Maya asked softly. Sabrina tilted her head. "Well, children don't always know what's best." Louis tapped his tablet again. "Got it." The next words Sabrina spoke would seal her fate. "Sweetheart," she said, walking toward Maya, "if you want to stay in this house, keep your pretty little room, your books, your school. You'll learn that cooperation is everything. Life isn't fair, but it can be comfortable if you play along." Maya's face didn't change, but her hand slipped into her pocket and tapped the small button inside. A second later, Marcus stood, voice like ice. "That's enough." Sabrina spun around. "Marcus, we heard everything." Louis stood too, recorder in hand. "You've been very thorough, Miss Lorne, but not thorough enough." Sabrina's eyes flicked from Marcus to Louis, then to Maya. For the first time, her mask cracked. "You little brat," she hissed. "You have no idea what you've just ruined." And Maya, calm, steady, looked her straight in the eye. I saved what my mom promised to protect." Sirens echoed down the road. Sabrina's eyes widened. She turned toward the front door, but Marcus was already there, waiting. And this time, he wasn't grieving. He was ready. The red and blue lights cut through the dusk like warning flares, painting the white columns of the Bennett estate in urgent pulses. 2 black SUVs rolled up behind the patrol car, tires crunching the gravel with ominous purpose. The moment the front door swung open, Sabrina froze on the threshold, her face drained of color. "Miss Sabrina Lorne?" the lead officer asked, stepping forward with calm authority. "We have a warrant for your arrest." "You're making a mistake," she spat. Her voice, once sweet and measured, had curdled into something sharp and frantic. "This is a misunderstanding. I'm a guest here." Marcus stepped beside the officer, his arms crossed, the expression on his face a mask of stone. "You're a predator, and you walked into the wrong house." Sabrina tried to retreat, but 2 agents from the Financial Crimes Division blocked her path. "Ma'am, don't resist," one of them said. "We suggest you come quietly." "Marcus," she pleaded now, voice switching again, reaching for the softer tones that once disarmed him. "You know me. I've loved you. I've cared for your daughter. You can't let them do this to me." But Marcus didn't flinch. He simply nodded at the officer and whispered, "Take her away." As the cuffs clicked shut around her wrists, Maya stood at the top of the stairs, Clara's law journal clutched tightly in her arms. Her small frame was tense, but her eyes never looked away. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She watched. And in that moment, Marcus knew his daughter had crossed some invisible threshold. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. She was something stronger. The officers led Sabrina out as she screamed about lawyers and false accusations, but it was no use. Everything had already been recorded. The audio file had already been sent to the Federal Investigation Unit, and Lewis had already forwarded the altered will and Clara's handwritten version to the state attorney's office. In less than an hour, the house was quiet again. Louis sat in the study, sipping warm bourbon from the glass Clara used to keep on that same desk. Marcus leaned against the fireplace mantel, eyes fixed on the framed photo of Clara. She was laughing and the picture caught mid-burst, arms wrapped around a younger Maya. She played it smart. Marcus murmured. Too smart. Louis nodded. She's done this before. That much is certain. He reached into his briefcase and retrieved a thick folder. Her real name isn't Sabrina Lorne. It's Vanessa Ramirez. She's been on the periphery of multiple inheritance fraud investigations across California, Texas, and Florida. Different aliases, different targets. All of them grieving, all of them wealthy, and all of them alone. Marcus exhaled slowly. How did we not see it sooner? Because she's good, and because grief blinds you. Clara said it best. Maya appeared in the doorway, barefoot in her pajamas, her hair a halo of soft curls around her tired face. I couldn't sleep, she said simply. Come here, baby, Marcus said, holding out his arm. She crossed the room and climbed into his lap without a word. Her body curled against his chest like it used to when she was 5. And as he held her, he could feel her heartbeat steadying against his. You were so brave, he whispered into her hair. She tried to make me sign something, Maya said, her voice almost too soft to hear. Marcus looked at her sharply. When? 2 days ago. A paper. She said it was a thank you gift, but I saw the title. It said, Future Property Transfer Agreement. Marcus's fists clenched. And you didn't tell me? I was scared. I thought, maybe you wouldn't believe me. The pain in his chest deepened. I'm sorry, he said. I should have listened sooner. But I didn't sign it, Maya said, pulling away slightly. I told her mommy said I wasn't allowed to sign things I didn't understand. Then she got really mad, said I was being ungrateful, said I'd end up in boarding school. Louise's face darkened. We'll make sure that detail is included in the charges. What'll happen to her? Maya asked. Marcus met Louise Chase. She'll go to court, Louis answered. And with the evidence we have, she'll be prosecuted not just for fraud, but for attempting to coerce a minor. She won't hurt another family again. That night, Marcus sat beside Maya's bed until she fell asleep. He watched her eyelids flutter, her hand still holding onto Clara's journal like a shield. When he finally stood to leave, he paused and whispered, We kept her promise, sweetheart. He turned off the light and closed the door quietly behind him. The following week was a blur of police interviews, legal appointments, and media inquiries. News of the arrest had spread faster than anyone expected. But Louis, ever protective, managed to shield Maya's identity from the press. This story isn't about a scandal, he told one reporter. It's about a child who did the right thing when no one else was willing to look closer. Marcus spent hours combing through his financials, ensuring nothing else had been compromised. Every account, every document was double-checked. Sabrina had been precise but not perfect. She hadn't yet filed anything legally binding. Her timing had been off by mere days. It could have been so much worse. The biggest surprise came the following Friday. Marcus received a letter mailed anonymously, with no return address. Inside was a simple note typed on ivory paper. She's done this before. You're not alone. Thank your daughter for stopping her. Also enclosed, photocopies of other wills from across 3 states, with matching clause insertions, similar fonts, and identical spacing discrepancies. Marcus handed the envelope to Louis, who handed it straight to the authorities. I have a feeling, Louis said. We're not the only ones this little girl just saved. That night, the house felt still for the first time in months. Maya sat beside the fireplace, flipping through her mother's journal. Marcus poured them both mugs of cocoa and sat on the rug beside her. Daddy, she said, testing the word again. He turned toward her. I want to be like Mommy. I want to help people who are being tricked, people who don't see it yet. He smiled, eyes stinging again. You already are, Maya. And somewhere in the quiet warmth of the firelight, in the echoes of everything they had survived, Marcus knew. They had faced darkness, yes, but they had come through with something more powerful than relief. They had come through with purpose. 3 weeks later, the house no longer echoed with unease. The scent of fresh paint lingered near the study, where Marcus had repurposed the room into what he now called Maya's library. Her mother's law books were arranged neatly on the shelves. Beside new volumes, Marcus had ordered legal basics, books on fraud prevention, and stories of young heroes who stood for truth. In the center of it all sat Maya's small desk, a hand-me-down from Clara's old law office, now perfectly sized for an 8-year-old girl with oversized dreams. Maya sat there now, quietly flipping through a book titled Rights of the Child in Modern Law. Her fingers traced under every word. She wasn't reading for school anymore. She was reading because she wanted to understand, to be ready. Dad, she said without looking up, why do some people smile when they're planning something bad? Marcus paused from where he stood, organizing papers nearby. Because they think they've already won, he said. Maya nodded slowly. Sabrina smiled a lot. She did, he admitted. She looked up. But I smile too. And I mean it. I know, Marcus said softly. That's how I know you're different. That afternoon, Louis stopped by with news. I spoke to the U.S. District Attorney's office, he said, easing into the kitchen chair. They're filing federal charges, not just fraud, conspiracy, multiple counts. It's going to trial. Marcus looked up from his coffee. Will Maya have to testify? Possibly, Louis replied. Though they're hoping the audio recordings and the forged will are enough. But they've asked for something else, something Maya can give without sitting in a courtroom. Maya appeared in the doorway, holding her notebook. Is it about the victim statement? Louis smiled. You've been reading again, haven't you? She nodded. I want to help the other kids, the ones Sabrina hurt before me. We'd like you to write something for the sentencing, Louis said gently. A letter, from your heart. They'll read it in court. That night, Marcus sat across from Maya at the kitchen table while she scribbled, erased, and rewrote. The lamp glowed above them, casting a halo of golden light onto her journal. Clara would have loved this scene, he thought. Their daughter so brave, so determined writing her truth. It took 2 hours, 3 crumpled drafts, and a 4th cup of cocoa. But when Maya was done, she handed it to Marcus without saying a word. He read silently, heart heavy with pride. To the judge, my name is Maya William, and I'm 8 years old. I used to think that adults always knew when someone was lying, but now I know that sometimes kids see things first. Miss Sabrina said she was helping us, but really, she was trying to take my mom's promises away. She scared me and tried to make me sign a paper I didn't understand. But I remembered what Mommy told me: never sign something just to make someone happy, especially if it doesn't feel right. Now I want to help other kids like me, because no one should be scared in their own house, and no one should lose what someone they loved left behind. I hope this letter helps you understand what she did, and why it mattered. Maya. Marcus folded the letter slowly and kissed the top of her head. Your mom would have been proud of you. I know I am. The following week, Marcus and Maya sat quietly in the courtroom gallery. They were behind the prosecution table, where Agent Lin from the FBI nodded to them in greeting. Louis was present too, wearing his most formal tie-dark blue with subtle gold stripes. Maya held his hand tightly. When the judge read Maya's letter aloud, the courtroom fell into a hush. Even the defense attorney stopped scribbling. A few people in the gallery wiped away tears. Across the aisle, Sabernano, in a beige jumpsuit and shackled at the wrists, didn't look up. For the first time, her face carried no expression at all. No smile, no calculated tilt of the head, just a blank stare at the floor. The judge's voice was clear, firm, and reverent. Miss William, this court thanks you for your courage, your clarity, and your commitment to justice. What you've shared here today will help protect others. Your words matter. Outside, as the trial adjourned and the media swarmed beyond the barricades, Marcus kept a protective arm around Maya. They slipped quietly into Louis's car and rode away from the courthouse, windows rolled up, The world locked out. That evening, Maya sat once again in her library. She didn't reach for a book. Instead, she opened a blank journal. On the first page, she wrote, "My job is to keep the promises my mom made, even if she's not here to keep them herself." Marcus peeked in from the hallway, watching her in silence. She looked up and smiled. "I want to start a group for kids who need to learn about their rights." He stepped in. "What kind of group?" "A club. We meet once a month. We read books like Mommy's, and we talk about how to say no when something feels wrong, and maybe how to tell the difference between people who help and people who want to take." He nodded, voice thick with emotion. "We'll make it happen." And they did. By the end of that spring, the Promise Club held its first meeting in the study-turned-library. 5 children came, all connected to other families affected by Sabrina's scam. They sat cross-legged on rugs, each with a donated book in hand, listening to Maya read aloud from a chapter Clara once marked with a star. Marcus watched from the doorway, heart steady for the first time in what felt like forever. The woman he'd loved was gone, but her voice lived on in their daughter's fierce, fearless whisper. The same whisper that had once said, "Don't let her touch the will." Now it said something even louder. "Let's protect every promise." Summer arrived quietly in Atlanta that year. The heat draped itself over the city like a wool blanket, and the days grew longer, slower, softer. But inside the William house, something new was blooming, something more lasting than season or sunlight. It was purpose. Maya's Promise Club had grown faster than anyone expected. What began with 5 children now had nearly 30 names on a waiting list. Word spread through community centers, churches, and teachers who whispered, "She's the little girl who helped rewrite her father's will and brought down a fraud." Parents, once wary, now called Marcus with hope. Some even asked if they could volunteer. Marcus found himself busier than ever, not with board meetings or acquisition talks, but with coordinating snacks, printing handouts, and screening every volunteer who entered their home. "Background checks," he'd say flatly, when Louis raised an eyebrow. "If I'm going to open my doors to children again, there won't be a single shadow I didn't check." Every Wednesday afternoon, the study would fill with young voices. Maya would lead discussions reading aloud from books, then asking questions that made even adults pause. What does it mean to feel safe? How do you know someone's telling the truth? Why do some adults act like they own your story? The children would answer, shyly at first, then boldly. One afternoon, as Maya finished reading a passage on the importance of guardianship, a little boy raised his hand. His name was Jeremiah, and he'd been silent through 3 meetings. "My mom signed something," he said. "But then this man came to our house and took our car, said we gave it to him." Marcus, who'd been sitting quietly by the door, leaned forward. "Did your mom know what she signed?" Maya asked gently. Jeremiah shrugged. "She cried a lot after, said she never would have done it if she'd known." Maya reached into her backpack and handed him a small laminated card. "This is a checklist," she said. "My mom made it, and Daddy updated it. Every time someone asks you to sign something, you show this to them first. And if they get angry, you walk away." Marcus swallowed hard. It was the first time she'd said, "Daddy" in public. After the children left, Louis stopped by. He stood by the window, watching the sun dip low over the backyard, where Maya and Jeremiah now drew with sidewalk chalk. "She's not just teaching," Louis said. "She's healing." "I think," Marcus said slowly, "she's leading." The silence stretched between them. "You're still not going back to work, are you?" Louis asked. Marcus shook his head. "No boardroom, no planes, no press interviews. Not yet." Louis tilted his head. "You're a billionaire, Marcus. You could be building empires." "I am," he replied, voice quiet but steady. "Just not the kind that's made of glass and steel." That night, Marcus sat in his room, staring at the old wooden box he hadn't opened in over a year. Clara's journals. Her writing, part legal, part lyrical, had always amazed him. He opened one and flipped to a page marked with her handwriting in bold ink. "Our daughter's voice will be her armor." He ran his fingers over the ink. In the weeks that followed, Marcus took Maya on long walks. They'd visit Clara's favorite spots, the botanical gardens, the used bookstore on Ponce, the overlook above the Chattahoochee River. One morning, while sitting beneath the rustling trees, Maya asked, Do you think Mommy knows what we're doing? Marcus looked at the sky for a long time. I don't know what I believe about heaven, he said, but I believe she hears you. Every time you speak with truth. Maya smiled, her face tilted toward the wind. Then I want her to hear this. I'm not scared anymore. And he knew she meant it. One Saturday, a letter arrived. The return address was from a correctional facility in South Georgia. Marcus opened it in the kitchen, Maya sitting nearby, peeling oranges. It was from Sabrina. The handwriting was too neat, too measured. Marcus, I've had time to think. More than I ever wanted. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know what I did. It started with fear. I was scared of losing what little power I had left, but I took something that wasn't mine. And I tried to take Maya's future too. She was the bravest person in that house. I know I'll never see the outside again, but if you ever speak of me, I hope it's not as a monster, just someone who got lost and didn't know how to ask for help. Tell her, thank you for stopping me. Marcus folded the letter slowly, then dropped it into the trash without a word. Maya looked up. Was that from her? He nodded. Did she say sorry? She tried. That's enough for me, Maya said, but I don't need to read it. Later that day, Maya asked if she could take the next club meeting outdoors. The sun was high, the yard green and wide. She'd written a new lesson this one about the difference between fear and guilt. As the children gathered under the elm tree, Maya stood tall, clipboard in hand, and spoke clearly. Sometimes, she began, people try to scare you because they think that gives them power. But if you ask the right questions and speak the truth, they lose it, because fear only works in silence. Marcus sat in a lawn chair nearby, listening with his arms crossed over his chest, pride swelling quietly behind his ribs. Maya finished her talk, and one by one, the children raised their hands. They shared stories, asked questions, and began to imagine a world where knowing your rights was as natural as learning to tie your shoes. As the sun dipped lower and the sky turned amber, Maya walked over to Marcus. I want to write a book, she said. He blinked. You're 8. I know, she grinned. But kids my age need to know what to do. I want to write it for them. He smiled, voice thick. Then let's write it together. And they did. But it was Maya's name on the cover, in bold letters, just like her mother once dreamed. The following spring, something extraordinary happened. Maya's book, Speak Loud, Even When You're Small, caught the attention of a local news anchor who'd heard about the Promise Club through a community teacher. What started as a 5-minute human interest segment turned into a viral video, and then a whirlwind. By the time the national morning show called, Marcus had already received emails from publishers, nonprofits, and educators asking to partner. But Maya? Maya had one question. Will this help more kids speak up? When the producers said yes, she agreed to appear. The morning of the interview, Marcus stood behind the camera crew as Maya sat on a stool, her feet swinging above the floor. The lights were hot, the host was kind. But the first question, how did you know to say something about the will, still made Maya pause. She looked over at her father. He nodded gently. I just listened to my belly, Maya said. It got all tight when she smiled like that. I didn't know what it meant, but I didn't like it. So I said something. The host smiled. And what happened after that? I think I helped my dad remember who he is. That answer broke the internet. Overnight, Maya became a voice for children's legal awareness. But Marcus was cautious. He declined every offer that didn't align with Clara's original vision. He turned down 2 reality show proposals, 3 book deals that demanded more drama, and a speaking tour. She's 8, he kept reminding people. She's not a brand. But it didn't stop the momentum. Nonprofits from DC and California reached out, asking if they could adopt Maya's checklist. A state senator from Georgia even proposed Maya's Law, a bill requiring that all legal documents signed on behalf of minors include a certified guardian advocate. Marcus met with her privately, and after a long conversation, he agreed to support it publicly. At the press conference, Maya stood on a small step behind the podium. The microphones were taller than she was. Kids don't always know the words, she said clearly, but we know when something's wrong. This law helps adults listen when we speak. The bill passed the House with bipartisan support. That night, back at home, Marcus grilled chicken on the deck while Maya ran barefoot across the lawn. Louis was there too, leaning against the railing with a glass of lemonade. "You ever think this would be your life?" Louis asked. Marcus glanced over. "Not in a million years." "You miss it?" Louis pressed. "The old life, the boardrooms, the deals." Marcus thought for a long time. "I miss the clarity. Business has rules. But this fatherhood, community, rebuilding trust, this is all heart work. Messier, but deeper." Louis clinked his glass. "To messier. To deeper," Marcus replied. That evening, as Maya settled into bed, she called him in. "Daddy," she whispered, "can we talk about Mommy?" Marcus sat at the edge of her bed. "Of course. Do you think she would have liked what we're doing?" He smiled. "She dreamed it before we did." Maya rolled to her side. "I remember her voice. Soft, like when you read me stories. But when she was mad, it got quiet, not loud." "That's true," Marcus chuckled. Her silence was sharper than yelling. Maya's voice dropped. "Do you think she knew Sabrina was bad?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "I think your mother saw through more people than I ever could. But sometimes, knowing something and being ready to act on it aren't the same thing. Maya nodded. Like me, when I knew, but didn't have the words yet." He leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Exactly." She was asleep before he reached the door. In the weeks that followed, Marcus and Maya visited other cities' quiet trips, not flashy. They spoke in schools, met with advocacy groups, and helped train guardianship volunteers. Marcus handled logistics. Maya led conversations. Every child she met walked away with a laminated checklist and a sense that someone believed them. But one night, in a Detroit hotel room, something changed. Maya woke from a dream, eyes wide, heart pounding. Marcus rushed to her side. "What is it?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She clutched his arm. "She was there, Sabrina. In the dream. She said she was sorry but then tried to take the paper from me." Marcus pulled her into his arms. "It was just a dream, but it didn't feel like one," she whispered. They returned to Atlanta the next day. That night, Marcus pulled out the last envelope Clara had left. He'd never opened it, not even when she passed. Her handwriting was on the front. "For when she asks about the darkness." He sat with Maya in the study, unfolded the letter, and began to read. Clara's words were measured, deliberate, but full of warmth. "Sweet girl, sometimes people hurt us not because they're monsters, but because they've forgotten they're human. They forget how to listen, or how to love. But your voice reminds them. Never be afraid to speak truth, even if it shakes the ground under your feet." Maya cried quietly, head on his shoulder. Marcus didn't say a word. He just held her. And that's how the 7th chapter of their story closed, not with applause or headlines, but with a letter, a dream, and a father's promise. That no matter how many people listened, he'd never stop hearing her first. A few weeks later, Marcus received an invitation that surprised him more than any before. It came not from a media outlet, not from a nonprofit, but from the very law firm that once tried to pressure him into finalizing his will with Sabrina in the room. The email was formal, crisp, with language that tiptoed around liability. But it boiled down to this: the partners wanted to meet Maya. "Why?" Marcus asked Louis, reading the email aloud at the breakfast table. "Because she scared the hell out of them," Louis said flatly, sipping his coffee. "And maybe because they want a clean conscience." Maya looked up from her oatmeal. "Will they say sorry?" "I don't know," Marcus replied. "Would you want to go if they don't?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "I want to see their eyes when I ask my question." "What question?" "The one that's been stuck in my chest since the beginning," Maya said quietly. "Why didn't anyone listen sooner?" 2 days later, Marcus walked with Maya into the marble lobby of Dawes, Kerr, and Bell. The same receptionist was there. She flinched when she saw them. The meeting took place in a glass conference room. 5 senior partners were seated, all white men in dark suits, one woman with stiff posture and red lipstick. Maya, in her navy cardigan and white sneakers, looked impossibly small next to them, but she walked in like she belonged. Marcus let her lead. "Thank you for coming," one partner began. "We wanted to express—" "Don't," Maya interrupted, her voice calm. "Not yet." Silence. She climbed into the chair across from them, feet dangling. "You knew something was off, that day. You saw me shaking. You saw my daddy confused. You saw her talking too fast. You all knew. None of the lawyers spoke. Why didn't you say something? The red-lipped woman cleared her throat. Miss William, legal proceedings often. I'm 8. You don't have to make it sound fancy. The silence thickened. One of the older men, Mr. Bell himself, finally folded his hands. You're right. We failed. We thought we were protecting the firm, but we forgot to protect the truth. That's why we asked you here. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a full audit mails, call logs, even internal memos questioning Sabrina's sudden influence. Marcus read it quietly while Maya waited. We're making this public, Mr. Bell added. And we're stepping down. Maya blinked. All of you? Bell nodded. Marcus looked up, astonished. Why now? Because if a child could see what we didn't have the courage to name, Bell said, then maybe she deserves to help shape the world we're leaving behind. As they left the building, Maya tugged Marcus's hand. I feel light. That's what truth does, Marcus said. Even when it's heavy, it sets you free. Back home, the mailbox overflowed. Letters from kids, parents, judges. One from a retired social worker in Wisconsin who said, I wish I had your courage when I was your age. Another from a young girl in foster care. I thought no one would believe me, but now I know someone might. One letter stood out. It was handwritten in a shaky but familiar cursive. Sabrina. Marcus stared at it for a long time before opening it. Marcus, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know I remember the night Maya spoke. I remember her eyes. And for the first time in years, I saw something I couldn't ignore, my own reflection in her disgust. I've entered rehab, not just for the pills, for the lies, for the hunger I chased with every charm and smile. You were right to leave. She was right to speak. If there's a way to start again one day, I hope it begins with silence. Mine. S. Marcus folded the letter, tucked it back into the envelope, and placed it in a drawer he rarely opened. Some things, he whispered, don't need applause, just closure. That weekend, the Promise Club hosted its first statewide gathering. Families came from all over Georgia. Maya stood under a big white tent, surrounded by children wearing matching shirts that read, Loud Hearts, Brave Words. She spoke without notes, just her voice. My mom used to say, the quiet ones are often the strongest, but I think the brave ones are the ones who learn when to speak even if their voices shake. I didn't save my dad. We saved each other, and now, we help save others. Cheers. Hugs. Tears. Later that night, Marcus found her on the porch, staring at the stars. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I think I finally believe it. Believe what? That what happened for a reason. So we could help. Marcus wrapped an arm around her. You've done more than help. You've changed lives. She leaned into him. Promise me something. Anything. When I grow up, and if I forget how it feels to be small, you'll remind me? He smiled. I will, but something tells me you'll never forget. As the crickets sang and the air cooled, father and daughter sat in the quiet, the good kind, not the fearful kind, the kind where nothing needed to be said, because the will had been rewritten, the truth had been heard, and in the space where silence once ruled, love had taken its place. 3 years had passed since the day Maya stood in that glass conference room and reminded a room full of lawyers what conscience sounded like. The memory still clung to Marcus like a song he never forgot, especially on mornings like this. When the house was quiet, the air smelled like fresh rain, and Maya's laughter echoed from the kitchen. She was 11 now, taller, stronger, her curls wilder than ever. She no longer whispered her thoughts, she shared them, fearlessly. She still called him Dad, and Marcus still paused every time, not because he doubted it, but because he treasured it. You got the juice, Maya? He called out. Top shelf of the fridge, behind your almond milk, she shouted back. Her voice carried with that same conviction she'd had since the day she warned him about Sabrina. And today was not just any day. It was the final hearing. The court would officially approve the educational foundation Marcus and Maya had co-founded, the Loud Hearts Initiative. It wasn't just a nonprofit. It was a promise written into reality. They'd partnered with schools across Georgia, offered legal literacy programs, workshops for foster youth, and scholarships for kids who'd been ignored by the system. It was more than paperwork. It was Maya's idea. She'd insisted on the name, because brave hearts aren't always loud. She had told the board members in their very first meeting. But when they are, someone should be listening. The courtroom in downtown Atlanta was packed. Reporters lined the back wall. Teachers and families sat shoulder to shoulder, many of them holding signs with the foundation's logo, a heart with wings. Maya wore a navy blazer over a white dress. She clutched a worn folder, her speech inside. Marcus sat beside her, in a charcoal suit that felt tighter than he remembered. "You nervous?" he asked. "A little," she admitted, "but mostly excited." Judge Erica Langston, a black woman with silver streaks in her hair and sharp eyes, entered the chamber and called for quiet. "We're here to review the final articles of incorporation for the Loud Hearts Initiative," she said, flipping through the packet. "Mr. Carter, Miss William, you have the floor." Maya stood. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the folder, but when she began to speak, the room stilled. "3 years ago, I sat in a room like this," she began. "I was 8, and scared, and no one believed me at first, not because they were bad people, but because I was small, and quiet, and black." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She continued. "That day taught me something, that sometimes adults forget how to listen to children, that laws protect power more than people, but I also learned that truth can be louder than lease if someone is brave enough to say it." Her eyes swept the room. "So this foundation isn't about me. It's about the kid who sees something wrong and says something anyway. It's about making sure the next Maya doesn't need a miracle to be believed." Her voice didn't crack once. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. The judge's gavel knocked lightly. "Motion approved," she said, smiling. "Let the record show that justice, in this courtroom, was led by a child." Outside, reporters swarmed. Marcus shielded Maya with his arm, but she stepped forward, answering questions like she'd been doing it all her life. "What's next?" one reporter asked. "More listening," Maya replied. "To kids, especially the quiet ones." That night, the house buzzed with celebration. Friends came over. Balloons, cake, laughter. Maya disappeared at one point, and Marcus found her sitting on the backyard swing, looking at the stars. "Hey," he said, handing her a slice of cake. "That was brave, what you said today." "It felt right," she said, kicking her feet. "But you know what's weird?" "What?" "I kept thinking, what if I'd never said anything back then? What if I let her touch the will? What if you'd never believed me?" Marcus sat on the grass beside her. "You did say something. I did believe you, and the world is better because of it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I still don't understand why she wanted to change the will so badly." "She already had you," Marcus sighed. "Because some people only see love as a ladder, something to climb, not something to hold." Maya was quiet for a moment. "Well," she said finally, "I'd rather hold it." He smiled. "Me too, kiddo." As the crickets hummed and the stars blinked like faraway eyes, Maya whispered, "Do you think other kids will listen now?" Marcus looked up at the sky, then at her. "I think they already are." In the weeks that followed, letters poured in again. This time from schools asking to partner, from lawyers offering pro bono work, from students sharing their stories. And then, one morning, a small package arrived. Inside was a faded stuffed bunny. No note, just the toy. Maya gasped. "That's mine. I lost it when I was 6. Marcus turned the box over. A return address in Seattle. The name, Sabrina Holloway. They didn't speak of it aloud, but Maya took the bunny, held it gently, then placed it on her nightstand. "Not all stories end badly," she said. Marcus nodded. "Some just take longer to find their way home, and maybe that was the real will. Not the document, not the money, but the legacy, the courage to speak, the love to listen, and the quiet understanding that sometimes even the smallest voices can rewrite the world."